There we go. Gotta unmute myself. I always do that wrong. Good morning, everybody. How is everyone doing today? So, happy Monday, May 20th, 2019. I hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend. It's been an interesting one this weekend. The season or series finale to Game of Thrones happened earlier this week. The end of Big Bang Theory, right? Big Bang Theory ended. There's a lot of pop cultural stuff that just kind of like came to an end, and then the Avengers is, recently had a complete shift, I guess you could say. It's like kind of the end of one era and I guess the beginning of a new one. So today we're going to talk about Game of Thrones. And I've been kind of going back and forth on what's my topic going to be for today. There's so many good stuff. There's this thing going on with Huawei, the chip manufacturer in China. They're in some dire straits here, especially because of stuff that they've said to Apple. And now it's kind of like, karma. There's a lot of stuff that I could talk about today. But, it just felt like this is going to be the biggest topic for a while, I think, is the ending to Game of Thrones. So if you have not watched the finale to Game of Thrones, or if you have not watched the show, I would recommend that you probably not watch this episode, which is something I rarely ever say. Usually you want viewers, you want people to watch what you're going to say. But I am probably going to have some spoilers. I'm probably going to let go of some of the stuff that's happened over the season. And for the most part, I don't want to make this video just about the finale. I want to kind of talk a little bit about the whole last season as a whole. So let's go ahead and dig into it. So Game of Thrones. So I didn't watch, from the very, very beginning. I started watching about like third or fourth season is when I started watching. But of course I started from season one, but I didn't catch on to the bandwagon right away. I just kind of, especially the name Game of Thrones, it was kind of like, how is this a good show? Like, how anybody who would name a show Game of Thrones just seemed a little, it didn't seem like the best title for a show that just seemed interesting. But at the same time, I like a Lord of the Rings. I thought that was a good movie. I liked the Hobbit series. I know there's some people that are a little detractors about the Hobbit series, but I thought it was perfectly fine. I thought it was a great set of movies. And I really like the Peter Jackson stuff that he's done. He did a fantastic job handling, I think, the source material and making it, making it really feel like what the books say. So, when it comes to Game of Thrones, my impression for the first, I'd say 6 seasons was, wow, this is great. This is just the subverting expectations that everybody seems to be liking to say right now. I thought that they did a really good job of handling it, but I think I mentioned this before on this channel. It was because there was source material. Right? I was talking about how I remember I did the video on Star Wars. God, I keep saying that. Star Wars, how Dan and Dave from Game of Thrones is going to be taking over the franchise over on Star Wars. So there's, it's kind of, I got to get to the point, don't I? Okay, I got a bunch of stuff that I just kind of wanted to talk about as far as this goes. And there's a ton of articles out there that are just destroying this season, and probably rightfully so. I think Dan and Dave built up so many expectations, and the way that they subverted it was just by like not answering it, or just kind of blow it off, or make it have this really nothing going on resolution. I think the pinnacle of that would be the Night King episode, right? Where the Night King is killed in the 3rd episode of the season, and it just feels like it happened way too fast, right? Like, we built up for 7 seasons this beast, right? Like, we just built it up to be the most important thing of the whole show. The whole show is about all these people that are doing these interactions, that everybody's killing each other, and we've got these politics going on. Meanwhile, there's this looming force that everybody's not paying attention to. And so what should happen is everybody continues to play their games all the way till the end, when all of a sudden everybody realizes, oh crap, we have got to band together. And instead they just kind of okay, we're going to have some of us band together. Some of us are still going to be total liars for no apparent reason. What made Cersei think that they were going to win in the North? What made them think that was even going to happen? If they didn't win in the North, what makes her think she was going to still live and her kingdom was still going to be around? Right? If they didn't help with the Battle of Winterfell. Now, I can kind of understand if they were reluctant to join in. No, we don't want to. And then what really, in my opinion, should have happened is, I'm fine with the Battle of Winterfell. Get a little hair there. They should have lost, right? Lost at Winterfell. That's what should have happened. Because if they lose at Winterfell, there's a hell of a lot more on the line towards the end of the season, right? There's some actual, there's a buildup of some sort of tension going on at the end of the season. They all have to go down south. You end up getting all of these characters that don't survive, or that do survive the horrific Battle of Winterfell. You should lose a bunch of people in that process. Maybe lose Tyrion, maybe lose Davos, lose Gendry, lose some people in that Battle of Winterfell. Make it heartfelt and horrible and horrific. The Jaime might have, how many times did we see the Whites basically overrunning one of these main characters, and the main character's still alive? How many times did we see that in that episode? It made no sense. Sam is not a fighter, yet somehow he's fending off 20 of them that have completely overrun him. How does that even happen? There's so many things that just don't make sense about that episode. I think it destroyed basically the whole series. Got lost because of this season. I really feel like this is one of those shows you're going to look back, and in 10 years, you're going to say to somebody who, some kids that maybe 15 years old right now, they don't know about the show. They're too young to understand it. But in 10 years, they're going to be 15. You're going to talk to them and you're going to be like, yeah, that was a great show. Well, now you're going to be it was a good show for a while, but it didn't really finish quite right, so I can't really recommend it. That's what's going to happen, and it's so unfortunate because it was a great show for 6 seasons. It was a great show. And then I'd say around 7th season, it just kind of started to, again, there was no source material, so it kind of started to devolve a little bit, but season 7 was still okay. And then, when season 8, it was just this is just a horrible thing. And a lot of it I do think was because they needed to wrap everything up in 6 episodes. And that's the first thing that really, really bothers me. Why did they take 2 years? Can anybody tell me? I understand they wanted to do a bunch of filming in the winter. Okay, they wanted winter. You know that there are 2 hemispheres, right? If you really, really want snow, and you have the budget of HBO to do this, why don't you just film somewhere down in Australia or New Zealand or something like that, right? Go find some place where it's snowing or where it will snow during the summer, during the northern summer, right? Why did you wait 2 years for these 6 episodes what are you waiting on? What was special? What was the amazing battle scene that took so long to put together and weave? Nothing. I don't. It was almost like they wanted to create more expectation so that they could subvert it by giving us nothing, by giving us absolute bupkis. Oh man. Okay. So my first, I've already gone through a few things, but Jon, what did he do this season? What did he do? He just basically stood by and watched. At the end, he finally committed parricide by, killing his aunt. But, did they get married? No. Okay, so Was he even really in love with her? Can we even tell? Do we, there was this weird relationship going on. Were they in love? Were they not in love? He didn't really seem like it. She really kind of seemed like it sometimes, but is easily put off by him. Were they even in love? So then what was the tragedy? What was the tragedy in him killing her? Right? He hadn't, if Tyrion had killed her, that would have been something, right? That would have been something, because he had been the devout follower for so long. And here you have Jon, who just shows up in season 7, and they're in love, and then he kills her. But why? I don't get it. I didn't have a complete thought there, apparently. So I think that they should have lost at Winterfell, fallen back to King's Landing, and then another battle should have ensued, right? That would have been a better way to have the season go. Because I think in that third episode, if that was actually they lost that, then there would have been a lot of oh man, this sucks, this bites. You think that these people might make it through, but oh no, that's my subverted expectations, right? That's what should have happened. And even have one of the major players, have Jon Snow die, have Dany die, just make it somebody important to us. And then that would be the proper way to handle those kind of subverted expectations. We thought that it would be one of them that would be Azor Ahai that basically did it, but in the end, it wasn't either one of them, and neither of them really did anything. The battle's over because Arya does this sick move that we've seen before, right? And how does that little girl jump like that? I'm just curious. That wasn't anything we ever saw. How did she jump that far in the air? I don't know. That's going back to episode 3. But okay, so I'm fine with Arya killing the Night King. I just think that Jon and Daenerys should have been a bigger part of it. I'm okay with her being the one that delivers the death blow. And I'm even fine with the way that she did it, with the whole, switching hands thing. That was pretty cool. But what I have a problem with is watching Jon basically be completely helpless. Here's another thing. Here's what I think should have really happened. That dragon that he was cowering in front of, I think that dragon should have actually breathed fire on him. And then he lived. And the reason he lived is because he's Targaryen. He's got Targaryen blood. There's a history of Targaryens being, in fire, right? We've seen it with Dany, being consumed by fire and coming out alive on the other side. Instead, they do that to the Night King, which that still blows me away. He's susceptible to dragon glass, but not dragon fire. So does dragon fire possess this property to kill Night King or not? I don't understand. How is it that there's this special property of dragon glass, which is supposedly been born through dragon fire, which, it's obsidian is pretty cool stuff. I've handled obsidian before. But what is this dragon fire is supposed to be creating this dragon glass that imbues it with special properties that can kill the Night King, but the fire itself that did it doesn't have any of that. And then how is it that we don't have... So Jon's battling this dragon or trying to cower from this dragon. Dude, if he's Targaryen, prove it to us. That's another thing. At what point was it ever really proven that Jon was Targaryen? I mean, yeah, we have the story. We have Bran, but let's see some demonstration of that. That's a cool thing. It's like having a special Jedi power and then never using it. Because he climbed on a dragon? Okay, maybe. Maybe that's a demonstration of his power, but still, it's if you're going to imbue him with some sort of special trait, demonstrate that trait. Make it cool. Make it something we want to see. And instead, it's just he's cowering in front of dragons. He's supposedly maybe Azor Ahai, but he has absolutely nothing to do with the battle against the Night King. There are just so many... Why would you make that a thing and then make it not a thing? At the end, you just like, we don't really want to address that. We're just going to, no. That's not how we want to do it. Because we got this other direction we want to go. We want to make Arya the one. And so we're going to do everything we can to basically highlight her as the hero here so that nobody else can take credit for it. I don't know. Okay. So destroying the Iron Throne, I'm fine with them destroying the Iron Throne. I just think that Dany should have just done it, right? She should have been on her dragon, looking at it, about ready to come down from the dragon. You think she's going to come down from the dragon and take her throne. And then at the last minute, she's like, no, and breathe fire on it, right? Dracarys, right? That's what could, and that would have been such a bittersweet moment, right? It's like she'd been working so hard to get to this, and then something inside of her just says, no, breaking the wheel, right? That's the whole point, was to break the wheel. So why didn't she just break the wheel right there? Like, she had the opportunity. There's the Iron Throne. I'm going to go take it. Yeah, that's not really what breaking the wheel is all about, right? And then if you really, really wanted to, like, I'm fine with them making it part of the plot to destroy the Iron Throne, but just make it have purpose, right? Have some reason why it needs to be done. There was no reason why it needed to be done. There was just an angry dragon. And we don't even know if the dragon even understood what it was doing. I presume the dragon was smart enough to figure out what it was doing, but we've never really seen the dragon act in an intelligent manner like this before. He's just been kind of a slave to whatever Dany was wanting to have happen. We've never seen it kind of act on its own behalf in a smart and intelligent way. So have it just like, it's smart enough to figure out, oh, this is what my queen has wanted. You guys are all evil men, so let's go ahead and destroy the thing you all always wanted. Just out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden, he's able to piece all these things together to figure out, I should destroy that thing. So bizarre. So bizarre. It would have just been way better if Dany had done it, right? She gets there. She's looking at the Iron Throne. It's what she's always wanted. Destroy it, right? That would have been bittersweet. That would have been fulfilling that prophecy that we saw in I think it was like season 2, where she has the dream and she gets right up to the throne, but she doesn't take it. Right? That would have been it. That would have been the fulfillment of the dream. It would have been so perfect. I don't know. I keep saying that. I don't know. So Tyrion saves himself by picking the king. So he's captured. He's supposed to be killed, but he saves himself because he just convinces everybody that Bran should be king. That's just such a weird plot device there. I don't know. And by the way, what wheel was broken? I mean, everyone's still ruled by a king or a queen. If you're in the north, you're ruled by, Sansa. But what's the wheel that broke? What's changed? And then when Sam, here's one of the things that I did like how, I forget what his name is, but the guy that stood up at first, he was like, hey, so, you should all pick me. And he's giving all these funny things, and, and Sansa just sit down. That was kind of funny, and there was some great levity there, and I thought that was handled okay. But then when Sam is like, if we're going to rule all the people, why don't we let the people, tell us how to vote? Or, why don't we let them decide? And then they just laugh at him. Why? Why were they laughing at him? That didn't make any sense. He's a maester now. He's supposedly one of the smartest people that's sitting there. He's one of the wisest people that could possibly be sitting in this ring because he's a maester. He understands the history. He's been there telling them how to go about destroying the whites. He's been helpful the entire time. He's been a source of knowledge. And when he says, basically, we should do democracy, they just laugh at him. No reason given, no argument against, just, ha 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 ha, silly Sam. No, he's a maester, for crying out loud. He's smarter than a lot of the people that are there, and they know it. They should be listening to him. They're willing to listen to Tyrion, right? They're willing to listen to Tyrion because he's smart and he says something intelligent. What was it that Sam said that was unintelligent and laughable? I don't understand. Like, it's just really what it was just a forced critique of. It's a forced critique of olden times, right? Of feudalism. That's all it was. It was just this, ha ha ha, look at how stupid we were back in the Dark Ages, right? That's all it was, which was just dumb. They did a decent job of so I think they did do kind of a decent job of explaining a little bit more about why Dany turned evil, but did you realize that it was completely a different reason than what they said it was at the end of the episode? So they have like this little after interview where Dan and Dave kind of explain themselves a little bit. And they were basically like, yeah, so the reason why Dany goes and destroys the Red Keep is because, or destroys King's Landing, is because she sees Red Keep and remembers all the things that were taken from her and her family, and she gets angry. And to a certain extent, I can understand that, but it was kind of like sudden. And then and now it's like, oh, well, she did it to liberate people. What could she have maybe done more about, like, why? Like, Jon should have been, why did you do this? And she should have been, I was incredibly angry. Like, and I have every right to be angry. And then if they had just been like, and she was done, right, with being angry. Like, this was just my moment. I needed it. It was cathartic. This was part of my family's heritage. I deserve to do this. This was my, like, then there might have been a little bit of some reasoning there, and it would have helped to bring things back. And they did do a decent job of kind of explaining, like, what her motivations were at the end, even though it was completely changed. Like, she wanted to take over Westeros, and she wanted to take over Westeros and liberate her people because that was where she believed she belonged. Then all of a sudden, it's everybody in the world. Where did that motivation come from? Where did that come from? All of a sudden, she just wants she wants to rule everybody. We haven't had any hint of this anywhere. She just did it. Oh, by the way, the North clearly forgets. The North doesn't remember a damn thing. You know why? Because where's Jon? Jon is not their king. They said he was their king. They should remember, all electing, that he's going to be their king. Is he their king? No. Just have him go up north. We got, why? Because Lady of Winterfell reasons. That's why. I guess you could say they may have felt betrayed by Jon. Right, because of how many times he bent the knee to Daenerys, and then Daenerys, doing her thing justifies their mistrust in him and why he should no longer be king. But at least explain that. At least, make that, have somebody say something like that. As Lady of Winterfell is, being there. Sansa's being basically crowned Lady of Winterfell. Let's have some sort of line in there explaining why the North just doesn't care anymore and forgets about Jon. They're their own province now. They're their own kingdom. They can do whatever the hell they want, just not what they said they wanted. What? Jon is your ruler. Jon is your king. Jon is still alive. We don't care about him. Oh, golly. I still think Tyrion was the best character on the show. I think that ending was great. I do think the ending of the ending scene with Tyrion as the Hand was fantastic. I did like that. It was like there's he's taken over. I like the way that they also handled him staring at the chair, giving a moment of pause. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you really like, that you tie back into the history of the show, right? That was where his father sat. That was where Ned Stark sat. That was where the Hand of the King sits, and he's finally the Hand of the King in Westeros. Not just Dany's hand, but the actual hand of the king ruling over the now 6 kingdoms, right? That was a moment of triumph for him. And I think they handled that really, really well. Like, that's one of the few scenes in the whole show, in the whole episode that was really on point and done well. And then having the humor to come along with it, as everybody's funneling in, and Bran, like the whole exchange of Bran in there and what he wanted and how they're trying to do this negotiations of him as the keeper of Highgarden. Like, that was great. That was some of the stuff that I think really made the show great. And Tyrion is kind of that character that a lot of those plot points revolved around, and it was fantastic to see him in that place. However, I don't think Tyrion should have lived. I don't think Tyrion was one of those characters that should have survived the whole thing. He probably should have been one of the ones that was, I hate to say expendable, but kind of one of those ones where you really feel like this guy has been so good for so long and done so many good things, and then when he just loses it, right? He, like, time after time after time, he gives bad counsel to Dany, and that should have really been his downfall, right? It's like what happened to Tyrion. Tyrion broke. He tried to do the smart thing, but he just wasn't doing it, and therefore he lost, right? That probably is what should have happened, not the ending that we got. Let me pick up on some of these chats here. Let me see. So Survivalizer, morning, Steve-O. Hey, morning. Mukhtar says, good morning. Survivalizer says, just don't spoil Poldark for me. Everything else is kosher. Okay. Mukhtar says, end of era. Yeah, it is kind of an end of era. Survivalizer says, so what's going on with Hawaii? Yeah, Huawei. So basically, what's going on with Huawei is everybody is basically no longer using Huawei chips. They're all backing out of them. And a lot of it has to do, I think, as I've said before, it has to do with like the Bloomberg. There was a Bloomberg article that was saying that there were these chips that were being put on motherboards, and this is a weird shift of topic. Basically, the companies that were bringing over these motherboards into America, they might have had chips from China that were giving some data back to the Chinese, supposedly. The problem is, I'm not sure that actually even happened. The Bloomberg report doesn't really give any true evidence. It's not like they discovered it and then they provided the evidence. It's just kind of third-hand knowledge. And when you look into who the third-hand knowledge was, you find out that the Israelis might have been involved with that. Like, director of Mossad, former director of Mossad is kind of the guy that is overseeing the information getting handed to the U.S. about this. Oh, and then Israel just miraculously comes up with this new deal with China to do more imports and exports of chips. So that's a really weird thing to me, and I don't really know what's going on there. Survivalizer says, hit me up later, gotta head into the office. All right, man, take care. I know who you are. But yeah, have a good one, and don't worry about... You gotta learn MVC, dude. You gotta learn MVC. So, sounds like royal marriages to me. Yeah, so it's royal marriages is what really could have solved, the whole thing between Dany and Jon could have easily have been solved if they had just gotten married, and then we could have said, okay, they love each other, right? That would have been, and then there would have been the unification of the North and the Targaryens. That would have totally have made sense. That there's so many ways that they could have made all of this make sense, and they just ignored every single opportunity. Tyrion, yeah, okay, so the killing of Dany wasn't perilous. Like, just Jon basically was up there, kissed her, and then, stabbed her. And she didn't even die, where she was stabbed, that's not a place where you die instantly. She was stabbed on her right abdomen. People don't die from that. If he had gotten her in the heart, well, I mean, they die from that, but they don't die instantly. They don't die as fast as she did. So unless Targaryens have their heart in a completely different place on their body, which is, I guess, possible, that really didn't make sense. She should have died agonizingly. and in his arms in a like tender back and forth moment, like, why'd you do this? But it was just like, stab, she's dead. And there was no peril for him. He didn't have to fight off her guard. He didn't have to fight, like, wouldn't you have loved to see him fight Grey Worm? Right? Grey Worm standing there next to her. Jon is approaching the throne. And Grey Worm stops him. And then he's like, why'd you do all this? And she says whatever she says. And then he finally is like, Danny, you can't do this. And then, Grey Worm like steps up and gets in his way and it gets in his face or something. And then they battle. Do that. Why can't you do that? Like, make some sort of peril. Like, there's some sort of impetus to doing this. Like, we have to do this. This has to be done. She has to die. No, it's just like, mwah, love ya, stab. Like, what? Oh, so many missed opportunities to do something that invokes some sort of reasoning. Or it invokes some sort of emotional tie to what's going on, or suspense. Where was the suspense in any of this? It was just, mwah, stabby. Jeez. Okay. By the way, what was the point of Tyrion finding his brother and sister at the bottom of the Red Keep? Like, what? So he goes down. And it was a cool scene. I did like the scene. I liked the cinematography to it, and how he's like, wandering down the catacombs and he's like pulling out bricks, and he gets kind of emotional when he finds his brother and sister. But why? They were like, yes, Jaime was something, but he even started crying when he first found Cersei. Like he was upset when he found Cersei. I guess he saw the hand first. Maybe that's it. Maybe it was all for Jaime and had nothing to do with Cersei. But like, Cersei was horrible to him. And then, but why even show that? Why did we take like 10 minutes of the episode of just him wandering down there to go find them? There's so much of this season that just felt like a waste of time. We have 6 episodes and people are doing nothing. This was one of those nothing scenes. Nothing was going on. You spent 10 minutes doing this scene, which visually looked pretty cool, but did nothing to further the plot in any way, shape, or form. It just was there. If you had 10 or 15 episodes, I could see that. If you've got a bunch of time to resolve this, sure, go to those 10-minute scenes that show the agony of finding his brother in the Red Keep. By all means. But there was no tension anywhere in any of this episode, in pretty much almost every episode of this season. What tension was there in episode 1 or 2? None, except for what they manufactured between Sansa and Daenerys, right? That was really the only tension going on. There was, some tension in the battle going on at Winterfell, which, again, that was like the most... That was the worst possible way that you could do a battle. Basically anybody who, you don't even have to be a 5-star general to understand the way that they were defending the castle was probably the stupidest way you could possibly do it. Like, let's just go send our forces out into the dark for no reason. Just have them go out there so it's a good visual thing. That really makes sense. Let's put all of our trebuchets out in front of our defenses and in front of our forces. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's have the defense line where we can set everything on fire behind our troops. Yeah, that way our troops will have to run through those things or have to go through the defenses in order for them to survive. That totally makes sense. Oh, those castle walls? We don't need to worry about those. Like, they're not really a good defensive mechanism. Just so many things about that battle that it was the worst. It was the worst battle scene we've seen. It was just the worst. And then again, I gotta ask, why did it take 2 years? Why did this take 2 years to give us 6 episodes of mostly dead air? It was the equivalent of dead air on the radio. There was no tension. There was nothing going on. Just people talking. And half the time they weren't even talking. They were just like looking around and staring at things. Okay. What do I have next on my list? Bran didn't want to be king, but then says, "Why do you think I came?" So Bran didn't want to be king, says he didn't want to be king, and then at the end he's like, "Why do you think I came?" So that I could be crowned king. Okay. By the way, did we ever get an answer to why the Night King was taking all those children of the North? Right? Like, he's taking all the babies. All the male babies. He's taking them and giving them some sort of special power or something. Just because? Like, we never got an answer to any of that. Why did he use the spiral symbols? What was that all about? Was there anything to it? No, not really. Just because the children, right? What they call them, the children of the forest, I think. Why was the Night King susceptible to dragon glass but not dragon flame? Right? That's still bad. I still don't understand that. Like, it was cool. I thought it was a neat little twist. Like, you know, he's basically like completely consumed by fire, but he's just as impervious to the fire as Dany is. That was kind of cool, but still not explained, right? By the way, what was the purpose of his generals? Was there any reason for his generals? I'm just curious, like, did they serve any purpose whatsoever other than to just stand around, sitting on their horses? They were completely useless. Why did Dany decide that every innocent civilian was worth saving until King's Landing? And so she's mad at the people of the Red Keep, so she kills all the people of King's Landing? Why didn't she just go to the Red Keep and destroy Cersei? Why didn't she just go and destroy the castle? Why did she have to kill all of these innocent civilians? There was really no reason given why she went after the people of King's Landing. She was mad at the people in the Red Keep and what had happened to her, the history of her family in the Red Keep. But they just, instead of going after the Red Keep, she goes after the people. For no reason. Just, I'm mad. Okay, but you're not even destroying the thing that you're mad at. You're destroying these innocent civilians, and that thing over there you don't get to until the very end. Well, I don't know. It just seems so ridiculous that they would do that. Oh, and that whole thing, I guess you could say it kind of sparked when Missandei, when she was killed at the wall, she was beheaded in front of Dany and Jon and everybody. Why was the last thing that Missandei said basically advocating for violence when the whole point of her culture is non-violence, right? That, like, the reason why her species was enslaved is because they were nothing but non-violent. And then at the end of her life, like, she's advocating violence. Okay, maybe. It just felt really forced and weird. And then my final point on this is, I think George R.R. Martin is going to sell a lot of books now because people are going to want to know how it really ends. That's what's going to happen. I think, George, you made out like a bandit on this because maybe you just knew they were going to screw it up. Maybe you knew... Maybe you purposely gave them, like, bad advice. Who knows? Because now everybody's going to want to know how this thing is supposed to end. How is it really supposed to go? And that means a lot of people are going to be like, I got to read the book if I really want to find this out, because season 8 sucked. Like, we waited 2 years for 6 episodes of basically screenshots. Or I should say, like, desktop backgrounds. Right? That's what we got. We got desktop backgrounds. That was That was the reason why we waited 2 years, was so that we could have some pretty cool things like Arya covered in ash with, blood on her face. Like, that's a really cool, like, visual thing. That's not why we watch Game of Thrones, but cool, I got a new desktop background. Yay. Glad it took us 2 years to get to this. I don't know. George is going to sell so many books. And people are not only are people going to want to know how this thing ends, they're not going to be able to understand. So here's the genius of it. The books, and I haven't read any of the books, but I know this. The characters from the show are based on different characters in the books, and sometimes it's like they take multiple people from the books to build one character, because you can't. It's apparently this huge, expansive, universe essentially that George is writing. So you can't really directly take what you've learned from the show and just go read the final book that George is going to write. You can't just take that book and find out how it all ends for what it should have happened at the show, because all the characters are different and you don't really know who's who if you go and read the book. So in order for you to really do it, you've got to go back and start from the beginning and read the first book all the way through. So not only is George going to sell a lot of that last book, he's going to sell a bunch of the older books too, just because of all these people that are going to want to know, how is it supposed to end? And it's for people who really want to do it, right? For people who really, really, really want to know, there's a bunch of us that are also going to be like, I'm just going to ignore, I'm going to pretend like the last 8 years of my life did not happen, because this was just terrible. All right, so that's going to have to do it. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I know this is kind of a spoilers thing. I know a lot of people aren't really, maybe you're not a Game of Thrones fan. Maybe you're looking at this channel to be more topical regarding technology and that sort of thing. But I got to tell you, sometimes I just got to talk about things that just, are on my mind, and this is one of those things. I hope that somebody does something to fix this. I don't know who, I don't know how. I know there's a petition on change.org for them to basically redo season 8. But, that's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. There's going to be some intrigue about there's a new series that's going to be, I guess, the prequels to this. I'm sure that'll get plenty of attention. It's really interesting to me that Dan and Dave are now going to be running the Star Wars franchise, basically. That's going to be an interesting twist. I don't know. Some of this stuff just sounds so... it's a bubble, right? It's a Hollywood bubble. Okay, guys, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. It's Monday. I'm sorry it's a Monday, but I hope you guys do have a good week. And I will see you guys again tomorrow, 7:30 a.m., and bright and early Pacific time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.